Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news as Erik ten Hag gets prepared to get rid of some Man United stars and drops a huge transfer lots to discuss this morning. I've just caught my eye by Zero Blade, who's one of our members in the chat. He says Beckham was my number one favourite number 7. Interesting. Who was your favourite number 7? There's been so many, hasn't there? Cantona, Robson, obviously Beckham, Ronaldo, George Best. I mean, look, I never watched George Best play. I think Beckham for me probably caught me at that age where I was more into. I mean, Man United's always been it for me, but I think iconic Beckham. I was a teenager, probably was more drawn to Beckham than any other player. So yeah, I probably agree with you on that. I suppose it's time thing, isn't it? But hello and welcome to the Friday morning show. We're in the Carabao Cup. We're playing bloody Burnley. Bloody Burnley. I can't believe it. It'll be a tough game that against Burnley because Vincent Kompany's got them playing in a very different way. I'll look forward to that. But still in the Carabao Cup. Fulham on Sunday. Rumours that Mitrovic is out, which would be quite nice. Don't wish injury on anyone, but we need 3 points on Sunday. And some big news to get into as Erik ten Hag looks to move on some of his stars and drops a massive transfer hint, as I said. Some interesting comments from Ten Hag post the game yesterday as well. But it's Friday, everybody. You've got to pump it up on a Friday. Friday night show, love that. Always a bit different. But as you can see, before we get into all of that, the show is sponsored by Surfshark this morning. I'm sure you've heard of Surfshark before. What is Surfshark? It's a virtual private network, which is fantastic at protecting your private messages, photos, videos, and other sensitive material. But my personal favourite thing about Surfshark, and as mentioned it before, is, and I think you'll be most interested in this, is that you can change your location on Netflix or other location-specific streaming services. So if you were on holiday in Australia and you wanted to log into your UK Netflix, you could change your location to London when you're in Australia and it will think you're in London and therefore you can log into it like that. So it works really well for that sort of thing. You can use Surfshark across as many devices as you like, even if they're used at the same time. It's also available on every device you can think of, Android, iOS, Amazon Fire, etc. And it even has more features to offer as well, one of them being the alert feature will notify you when your personal information has been leaked online. Because Surfshark are super nice, they are giving United Stand viewers 83% off plus the first 3 months free. So it's not 1 month or 2 or 3, it's 3 months. 3 months free, 83% off when you use the code United Stand. If you're on a virtual private network, give it a go. If you've never tried one, give it a go. Surfshark, fantastic. And as always, the link is in the description, or you can scan the QR code right next to my head. There you go, with your phone. Don't scan me, you'll get nothing for free. But with Surfshark, you will. Right, let's get into the show. Hope we're all doing very well this morning. I'm going to start off with Ten Hag ready to sell stars, because a lot of people are saying, who is that player on the thumbnail? It's Donny. It's Donny van der Beek. If you guessed that, well done. But I don't think he's the only player to watch out. And some people might say, well, he's not really a star. There is a big Erik ten Hag transfer hint that you may not have picked up on after the game last night, which we'll talk about as well. But before I talk about that, I just want to bring in a little bit of tactical analysis from last night. Erik ten Hag, I think sometimes we as fans put ourselves down and say we're not worthy. We are worthy. If you want to see whether we're worthy or not, you should be watching my Football Manager series, which is put the highlights on That's Football, and I stream on Twitch every afternoon at 3 o'clock. Goldbridge Ball in the National League is rocking it like status quo. So, you know, and if you don't know who status quo are, you don't know what rock is. So, yeah, we do put ourselves down a little bit sometimes and think that these prats that they wheel out on national media are better than us, and they're not. They talk as much crap as we do. If you were watching the watch along last night, we were simply saying that the problem with Man United last night was until Eriksen came on, we couldn't pass from the midfield to the attack. And therefore we were so reliant on the long ball, which was easily readable by a Villa line that just stepped up every time. What happened when Eriksen came on is we had the ability to pass through the lines. Bruno moved into the number 10, and suddenly we started creating different types of chances and started causing Villa more problems, and were able to get in behind Villa because they didn't know whether to push out or not, and that was the uncertainty we needed to get in behind. That tactical change happened because of Eriksen. We spoke about it and said that McTominay and Fred are dreadful at making us be an attractive team because we can't pass through the lines, so we have to hit long balls from the back. Erik ten Hag said this straight after the game, literally said that passing to the forwards wasn't possible until Eriksen came on. So, you know what? We don't need Erik ten Hag to tell us that, but many of us discussed that, And sometimes I think you've got to give yourself some credit because it was very obvious that was the problem. Morning, Mark. My favourite number 7 was Norman Whiteside, says Tracy. Lots of people love Norman. Yep. Yep. Little bit before my time, to be honest. But yep. Yeah. People from that era love that team as well. A lot of, you know what, it wasn't my era, the 70s or the early 80s, but a lot of United fans who are a bit older than me, they loved those times. Yes, we weren't winning titles, but we were a very good cup team. And of course, Norman Whiteside scored a very famous goal, didn't he? Was it Everton 85, down to 10 men? Kevin Moran was sent off, whipped it in the bottom corner. I don't remember it, but I've seen it plenty of times. A good rested Eriksen is one of our most important players. We do need a differential to Eriksen, and unfortunately nobody offers that. But look, what are we talking about? Ten Hag ready to sell stars. I think Erik Ten Hag is ruthless. I think that Erik Ten Hag is relentless, and I think that Erik Ten Hag is impatient and obsessed with making Manchester United successful. You cannot be those things and not see what the problems are. Maybe under Solskjaer we had a smiling person who was just happy to be there and, you know, was just hoping that he could do it with whatever the club gave him. But if Erik Ten Hag is obsessed and is relentless and is impatient, he will look at the things we see, whether it's Eriksen needing to be brought on because McFred can't do it, or he will look at some of the players that are underperforming and go, they can't be part of my journey. They can't be part of my journey. We still need another 10. I love Bruno, but he needs competition, says Lovely Bit of Squirrel. And love the Football Manager save. Hope it goes multiple seasons. Favourite YouTuber and my favourite game, says Dion. Yeah, I've got more highlights coming out this morning, actually, on That's Football, and then another live at 3. I think that Donny van der Beek is in trouble. And I think that I think there's a chance he'll go in January. Yeah, genuinely I do. He started 3 games in a row. I'm a big fan of Donny van der Beek, and I will defend him because I just don't like the rhetoric that has been built around him in the last 2 weeks by the media and some of our fans. It's gone from nothing to vile, and I don't get it. The abuse he's been getting doesn't deserve to wear a Man United shirt, this, that and the other. I'm like, has he done something that's not been released? Because I don't get it. He seems like a nice lad who's had a horrible time at Manchester United. Loads of people have been in that situation. Maybe it's time to move on. But I don't get the abuse he gets. Like, up until these 3 games, I thought under Solskjaer, when he played, he actually did reasonably well. I think these 3 games he's played have probably been his worst 3 games for United, weirdly. Every time I saw him play, I always thought there was a lot of potential there. But, yeah, he's not played well in the last 3 games. I can't see him starting against Fulham. And then when we're back for Christmas, I can't really see where he gets in. So he's back on the bench again, probably 4th choice sub maybe. So I think that Van der Beek's got to move on, unless Ten Hag really has seen something that we're not seeing that he wants to persist with. We can cash in on Donny. There will be people who want Donny. We will get 20 million for Donny, whether it's back to Ajax or something. The issue is with Donny is, do you do it in January or do you wait till the summer? Now, if you wait till the summer, you've really got to utilise him. And where do you utilise him? Because really, time might be up. I think it might be time to let Donny go in January, but then you've got to bring somebody else in. And at the moment, I don't think United have any idea in midfield what to do. So my inclination is that we probably are going to see the end of Donny. And I did say this a couple of weeks ago. I think there's a 75% chance he won't be a United player next season. But I do think he'll probably make it through to the summer because I just don't see what we would do. Now, personally, for me, you sell Donny for 20 million, you get Tielemans in January for 15 because he's only got a few months left on his window. But I don't know whether United would look at doing that. But yeah, I mean, there are options there, but I just don't think United are really in the market for a midfielder. So I think Donny probably is heading for the door, and I think that the manager is probably aware of that. There's a couple of other players as well. I think Elanga, we've got to make a decision about Elanga. It's a shame. I think I'm in the minority that I do like Elanga, but I just don't see what he offers. I mean, he comes on in games and you forget he's on the pitch. Like, his impact is 0. There's pace, but his impact... I mean, look at Garnacho yesterday, 18-year-old just starting off, and then you've got Elanga on the other wing. All right, he prefers to play on the left, but do you really think he could do what Garnacho did on the left? He's a filler. Like, he doesn't offer anything. And I think the big problem with Elanga is he was over-promoted by Rangnick. He's been over-promoted by Ten Hag because we're short. But actually, I don't think it's doing anything for his development. He should be in the Championship where Mejbri is. That's where he should be, developing. But he's entering at Man United. And I think he's got to be moved on. And if we could get him alone in January, I think it would be great to send him into the Championship for the final 5 months of the season. And then the third player that I think is in big trouble is Jadon Sancho. And I don't think people will want to discuss this, but I think that I think Jadon Sancho is in a lot of problems because not because he's ill. I mean, that's just by the by, you know, it's like fitness, isn't it? But I was thinking about it last night, and Garnacho played so well, and he's clearly a player that we're going to have to use a lot of and develop. I mean, he's done that to Villa last night. He scored in Spain last week. He's not a player where we won't see him now till, you know, Burnley next year. He will probably play against Fulham. He is now part of the first team. And once you start being part of the first team, we've all seen what happens with development of young players at Man United. You can't be part of the first team and then Sancho gets better and it's like you're back to the youth team because I'm going to use Sancho. You've got to, and Ten Hag will know this, you've got to ride that journey and stay on that journey. You've got to stay on that bus because if you don't, then you hamper his... He's had a taste of it. He feels he's ready. He looks like he's ready. And now it's about developing him around that first team scenario. If you take him out of the team to give Sancho a go, everyone knows Garnacho's the more exciting player at the moment. And I just wonder what Sancho's future is at Manchester United, really. I think there's a player there. Can he become a number 10? I don't think he's got the work ethic at the moment. If you think about some of his mistakes this season, he's not tracked back. You've got to run around a lot at number 10. Can he get the position off the left-hand side? I think Rashford said last night that's his best position. You've also got Garnacho there, so you've got those two there. Does he go back to the right-hand side, be an understudy to Anthony? I think Sancho, the journey's not over for Sancho, but I think you've got to throw him into that category of how much longer do you give a player like that, and how much longer does Ten Hag give a player like that? If he doesn't break into that team after Christmas before May, then that's 2 years of a player that's just not done enough. And then you're like, well, the manager's probably made his mind up, and he starts to become what Arsenal had with Pepe. So I think it's very interesting with Sancho. I'm a big fan of Sancho, like many of you, but he's got to come back and he's got to start playing consistently well because the competition with Anthony, Rashford and now Garnacho puts him firmly on the bench. I wonder if we could do something with Ajax, Donny and Edson Alvarez. I think that would suit all parties, says Charlie. Well, a few people have mentioned Timber as well. But look, I think we've got to... Tabo says we're very obsessed with buying than developing. Well, the great thing about Garnacho is we're not talking about buying a winger, are we? I don't think there's a United fan out there that wouldn't love it if I said there's a midfielder called Mainu or Gore who are going to be in that first team in the next 18 months, and we don't need to replace Casemiro or Eriksen because they're going to be the players. Fingers crossed they both will be, but you've also got to be looking at the market and going, that probably won't happen. Let's hope it does. And with Garnacho, we're not looking at the market because we've got a player coming through. And that's great, and that's what you want to happen. I mean, you definitely do, but we've also got to look at the market as well. Mark, I've always loved Sancho and think he's quality, but since he's joined United, he's been a winger who can't go past his man, says Simon. I'm hoping that with Sancho, he'll be sat there recovering from what he's got at the moment, and he'll be looking at Garnacho and going, right, that's a kick up the backside. I've got to respond to that. Sancho is a Valencia or Marseille or Lazio player, says Robert McCormack. And certainly, I don't think Robert's in the minority there. I think there are some people looking at Sancho and going, yeah, I'm not that interested in Sancho. He either comes in the team and plays well, but I'm not having him in the team coasting anymore. And I think that's the thing. If Sancho's going to be in that team, he's got to come in and perform. And let's wait and see what happens. But so Donny, Sancho, Elanga, I think they're three players that Ten Hag is going to be talking a lot about over the next few weeks and making a decision. I don't think any of them are going to go in January, really, if I'm honest. But I think in the summer, there could be big decisions made around those three players. And of course, two of them, well, over £100 million spent on Donny and Sancho in the last 2 years, when you think about it. I also think Lindelof and Maguire have to be thrown in there as well. There's another player I'll speak about in a minute because it moves to a different story. But I think I'd also throw Fred in there as well. I don't see how we can keep Fred and McTominay. I mean, McTominay played well when he went more advanced last night. Fred played well a few weeks ago against Spurs, but they can't be the. We need one. It's funny, they're called McFred, and I don't think people understand it. I mean, I've heard people say it's very offensive to call them McFred, but they get called McFred because they still are one player. They're one player, really. And what I mean by that is we only need one of them. As a pair, they don't work. They didn't work last night. We only need one of them on the bench. They're not good enough to keep both on the bench. Now, a year ago, we were saying you can only start one of them. They're not good enough to start. I don't think you can start either of them anymore, but one of them on the bench is fine. For me, I don't know. I think Fred, when he plays well, is better than McTominay. But McTominay, although he's pretty average, does tend to be pretty average more than McFred is good. So I probably lean towards McTominay and moving Fred on, especially with the contract situation. But I can see a scenario where we keep both of them. And I just don't think their quality is good enough to keep them both, because we saw it last night. If Casemiro gets injured, you've got to play one of them. They're not good enough. If Eriksen's injured, you've got to play one of them. They're not good enough. One of them as a bench option's fine, but two of them as your backup midfielders, not good enough. So we've got to move one of those on. And then, yeah, as I said, Maguire or Lindelof, one of those has got to go so we can bring in the modern type of centre-back that we need, because we saw it last night. Both goals we concede are really on the fact that the defence is terrified and they're backing off, or they're getting caught in behind. Both those goals that Villa scored are preventable if you've got Martinez and Varane, because they'll hold their line and not be worried about the ball in behind. We need a centre-back with recovery pace who's a bit more aggressive. And Maguire's aggressive, but he's too slow. And Lindelof is not aggressive enough. So one of those, for me, has got to go in the summer. We cannot go into next season with Casemiro and Eriksen's replacements being McFred and Martinez and Varane's replacements being Magaluf, because they're too different. And I mentioned this on the watch along last night. If you watch Liverpool or Manchester City, if they pick up injuries, they bring players who, it's like if Pep Guardiola loses one of his centre-backs, he doesn't say, right, we're not playing a high line pressing game, high possession, we're going to drop off because I'm worried about the ball in behind. They still play the same way. If Jurgen Klopp loses Fabinho, Henderson and Thiago, he doesn't suddenly go, right, we're going to change how the midfield works because we haven't got those players. The principle of how you play is the top of the Christmas tree, and then everything below it is decoration. You know, the star is the way you want to play, and Manchester United will have the way that Ten Hag wants to play. Unfortunately, he's tied up at the moment, because if he loses Varane, he can't really play the same way. If he loses Casemiro or Eriksen, he can't play the same way. We've got to provide him with the squad that when Eriksen has a rest, another player comes in who's maybe not as good as Eriksen but can do what he does. Not as well, but he can do it. We go from Eriksen to not even being able to pass through the lines. We go from Varane to not even be able to play a high line. So that's what we need to move towards. And therefore, for me, you've got to move either Maguire or Lindelof in the summer. Keep one of them and bring a centre-back in who becomes your third choice centre-back, and one of those stays as your fourth choice. Greg Jackson, welcome to the Members Club. Lazy says, so yeah, for me, Sancho, Donny, Elanga, one of McTominay and Fred, and one of Maguire and Lindelof, they are five players that really, or five scenarios that have to really be looking at themselves and probably are on the chopping board for Ten Hag. Probably all next summer. I wouldn't imagine any of them go in January because it's difficult. But next summer, I think those situations will have to be made. And I tell you what, I don't think we're speculating. I think those decisions will be made, because I feel that Erik Ten Hag is in tune with the fan base, because I think he is obsessed and impatient and determined to be successful. And I think he looks at the things we look at and goes, yeah, I have got to do that. So I think he will be ruthless. Lazy Parker says, Aaron Wan-Bissaka's treatment shocking. Only one that hasn't had no chance. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. I want to talk about that now. I think we'll buy in January, says Charlie. Ten Hag mentioned after the game he will plan to improve during the World Cup. I'm reading between the lines, of course. Let's not forget that it's Friday and we are free from our bosses for the weekend celebration, says Josh. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, don't miss the Friday night show tonight. It's always good. This is why Ten Hag was brought here, says Savage. Yeah, and he must be allowed to do it. Club has put a 26 million price tag on Maguire, says Ronald. Just very quickly, as a bit of an experiment, maybe we can do this more tonight, actually. Let's call it the Friday night sale. Okay, we'll do that later. But there's a few players I want to go through on that on the Friday night show. What's their value? And we'll have a bit of fun with that tonight. But what do you think Harry Maguire's value is? He's got loads of time left on his contract. He's 29. It's definitely not 80 million. I think Harry Maguire in this market, I guarantee you could get 40 million for him. Yeah. I think you could get 40 million for Maguire. There'll be somebody, I'm thinking Everton. Yeah, I think you could get 40 million for him. Yeah. So I'm just saying to that 25, I don't think it is. I love Friday night with Tipsy Goldbridge, says Catherine. I'm going to do a live Friday night show one day and we can all be tipsy together. On Joy, you don't have to drink. A lot of people saying 25, 30 million. I do think Everton would go for him. I don't think Newcastle would go for him now. West Ham would like him, whether they'd have the money or not. David Moyes would love Maguire. Yeah, I think we'd get 30, 40 million pound for him. Does Casemiro look like an angry progressive dad? I don't think you can say that. Anyway, let's talk about that previous thing about Wan-Bissaka, because this was the second thing I wanted to talk about. Ten Hag has dropped a massive transfer hint. If you watched the Watch Along last night, you'll know this. If you didn't watch it, where were you? Basically, I spoke about this on the preview for the Villa game as well. I said we're going to get a huge transfer hint on the next two games because Dalot can't play on Sunday, so somebody's got to play at right back, and whoever plays at right back on Thursday will probably play at right back on Sunday. Well, he picked Dalot, so Dalot can't play on Sunday, but the hint was there. I think the right back started last night. I think it's Lindelof or Malaysia. It's not going to be Wan-Bissaka. Quite rightly, he's not played a game for Manchester United this season. He is fit. He wasn't even on the bench last night when you know that your right back's out on Sunday. Now, unless Ten Hag is just going to parachute him in and start him with no previous game time, I can't see Ten Hag doing that. It's not how he works. He's methodical. He likes to feed people in. I think if Wan-Bissaka was starting against Fulham on Sunday, he would have played for 45 minutes last night. He wasn't even on the bench. So I think we've had the big hint that I mentioned. If Wan-Bissaka had played last night, he was obviously getting his chance and he probably would have played against Fulham. If he doesn't play last night, he's not going to play against Fulham, and therefore he's gone in January and we are going to get a right back. So we are going to get a right back in January. There is going to be a right back coming in January, so just get ready for it. Man United are going to bring a right back in January. Now that January right back could be a new signing, and I think it will be. It could also be the return of Ethan Laird on loan from QPR. It could also be Brandon Williams who finally gets fit. I don't think that's the option, because the reason I don't think it's Brandon Williams is because it's the same reason Wan-Bissaka's not been given a chance. Everton have got Cody and Tarkowski. They are both better than Maguire, says Simon. I think that we could go for Timber Savage. I don't know whether we would go for Timber, but we could go for Timber because he can play right back short term. But Wan-Bissaka will go. The story around this right back situation is basically typical United's failure in the transfer market, unfortunately. What happened is Erik Ten Hag came into the club and said, you can sell Wan-Bissaka. And that was said very early, late May. Man United had offers for Wan-Bissaka but didn't want to take them because they'd spent 50 million quid on him and they wanted to not really take a huge hit. But they're going to have to take a huge hit because whatever they were offered in the summer will be less in January because he hasn't played football. So you have to take that offer. They didn't take that offer. And Ten Hag has basically been told, he's still here. He's still part of the squad. And then Erik Ten Hag has said, I don't want him as part of the squad. He's not part of my plans, so I'm not going to pick him. And last night was pure defiance. It was like, I don't want to use this player. I would rather use Lindelof, who is a centre-back, or Malaysia, who is a left-back, at right-back, than use him. There is no future for him. And this is not personal. I don't think there's a fallout between Ten Hag and Wan-Bissaka. It's more about, I'm building this vision. You're not the sort of right-back I want. You need to go and build your career elsewhere, which is something Wan-Bissaka wants to do, and Ten Hag wants to move him. So it's on Man United to move him on. He will go in January. It may well end up being the loan that we refused in the summer. Or it may well be that we take 15 million quid, which is what we were offered before. But Wan-Bissaka will go in January, 100%. And he will not kick a ball for Man United this season by the looks of it. Where we go next will be very interesting. Brandon Williams was also up for sale in June, the same as Wan-Bissaka, but he got injured. So I'd be very surprised if Brandon Williams becomes the right backup option to Dalot. It could happen. He's from the youth. He's got the right attitude. He could do it. But he's also been told he's surplus to requirements. So why would Wan-Bissaka not be given a chance and then Brandon Williams is given a chance? So I don't think Brandon Williams will get it. You've got Ethan Laird, who's on loan at QPR. The feeling around Ethan Laird is that the best place for Ethan Laird is QPR, because if you bring him back and he's an understudy and he doesn't really play, and he then gets moved on, he won't be worth what he's worth if he's staying in the Championship, proving himself. So I think with United, they're looking at Ethan Laird and going, his development is better in the Championship, playing week in, week out. So they don't really want to bring him back, which then leads us to what is the most likely option, which is we buy a right back. Mark, do you think Ash is going to beat Leon on the Masters 8 final and become a Pokemon Master, says Carlos? I mean, that's just like a different language to me. I've got no idea about that. Are the Shaw to Everton rumours true, says Michael Morris? Well, Luke Shaw needs a new contract. I don't think that Luke Shaw will be moved on, because I think Luke Shaw is quite firmly our number one left back at the moment. The problem with Luke Shaw is, and the thing that people don't talk about is, we spend a lot of time talking about whether we should give Rashford or De Gea or Shaw a new contract. What you don't consider is, do they want one, and what do they want to sign one? Rashford wants to stay at Man United. David De Gea wants to stay at Man United. I don't know about Luke Shaw. I think he wants to stay at Manchester United, but it's also his last big contract, and he might say, I want 200 grand a week or something, and United might go, we want you to take a pay cut. And then he might go, you're taking the piss. I'm going to run my contract down, and then when I'm free, I'll get 200 grand a week because I'll be free. So, and I'm not saying Luke Shaw's going to do that, but that's why these contracts get negotiated. Man United don't knock on the door of Luke Shaw and say, there's a 3-year contract on 150 grand a week, you're our left back. His agent goes, well, he's on 170 at the moment, we'd like 200. Well, you're not having that. Well, we're not going down to 150. And then that's where the negotiations start. So I don't know. I would expect Luke Shaw to stay, because I think Ten Hag would want him to stay. But you don't know. I mean, for me, the priority deals to get done are De Gea, Rashford, Dalot, Garnacho. They're the 4 I really want us to get done, and I believe we will get them done. They're the 4 most important, because they're the 4 most consistent performers with the most value, I think, to Man United in the long term. Luke Shaw and Fred, I definitely want Luke Shaw to stay. Fred, as I said about Fred, I think you keep one of McTominay and Fred and you bring another midfielder in. If somebody said to me right now, on January the 1st, you can get rid of McTominay or Fred and bring Tielemans in, I'd say, right, let's flip a coin. I don't care which one goes. I would love Tielemans to come in, because that will strengthen our midfield. If we had Tielemans, Eriksen, Casemiro, and one of McTominay and Fred, we're much better than McTominay, Fred, Casemiro, and Eriksen, because whatever you think about Tielemans, he can pass between the lines, unlike Fred and McTominay. He is quite tenacious. He can score a goal. I think he would add a lot to our midfield, but there's no way we're going to do that deal. No way in a million years, unfortunately. Polo says, why is Erik Ten Hag not playing Pellistri? Because he's the manager. That's it. That's it. He's the manager and he makes the choices. Some people might think Wan-Bissaka deserves a chance. Somebody might think that, Elanga should be playing off the left. I don't know. But the reality is, Pellistri, I think, would have been nice to have a look at. I mean, he's going to the World Cup. But again, the noises coming out of Carrington is that Pellistri is surplus to requirements. He's not a player that Ten Hag wants to put time and effort into in the long term. And you can sort of understand why, because you've got Garnacho coming through. He's still got the Elanga thing to solve. He's got Anthony, Sancho, Rashford. He's got 5 wingers there. And then Pellistri comes into the equation. He obviously just doesn't fancy him, does he? As being somebody worth putting the effort into. I think Pellistri will go 100% in January. Potentially another loan, but I think we might just take 5 million for him. If he has a good World Cup. Would you swap Donny for Timber in January, says Joseph? Yes. I don't really ever feel the need to get aggressive or abusive to a player that's not worked out at Man United, unless there's someone like Di Maria or something like that who does something really bad. I think Donny van der Beek is an inoffensive player who, it's such a shame it didn't work. I was a big fan of his at Ajax, but we sometimes have this issue with players coming in from other. I really, really wanted Kagawa to work out, and it didn't. I'm stunned that Mata didn't work out. I mean, Mata was playing well in the Premier League at Chelsea, and we never really got the best out of Mata. There was glimpses, but we never used him right. So Man United, especially over the last 10 years, is littered with players that... I mean, I thought Schneiderlin from Southampton would be a good player. I mean, he just seemed to fall off a cliff. There's so many players that I've thought would come to United and do really well. Memphis Depay as well. So many players. And I mean, Memphis Depay came in from the Dutch league, didn't he? So I think with Donny, we're getting to the end game now. He started 3 games in a row. He's been subbed off early in all of them. Unless Erik ten Hag has got some plan where he's actually really happy with what Donny's doing and he's working him back gradually, I think that, yeah, you've got to look at if, and it won't happen, but if there was an opportunity to do a bit of a swap deal, Donny van der Beek and 15 million for Timber, you'd do it because we need that type of centre-back. Alexis Sanchez is another one as well. The Saint makes a good point. You've also got Ahmad, who I don't think is realistic. What about Max Aaron, says Clark? I think the right-back situation, I'm going to do a video about this because I'm going to do a bit of work and find 5 right-backs that are realistic for Man United in January. Max Aaron's is interesting. He's got 1 year left on his deal. I've always quite liked him. As an understudy, is he not perfect for what you want? You want an understudy, but some people, I think, want us to go and buy Hakimi or someone like that who's going to, I don't think we need somebody to come in who could be better than Delot. I think we need somebody who could come in who's an understudy but can develop and battle with Delot. I think we've got it perfect at left back. You've got Luke Shaw, who's the senior left back, who on his day is the best. But you've got Malacia, who is the developmental player who has glimpses of being really good and should get better and better over the next few years. That's what I would like to see Man United doing in that scenario. Make sure you smash a like on the video and subscribe, by the way. Oh, I forgot to say, this beautiful hoodie, which I was wearing on the watch along last night, is now available and ships worldwide, and you can get one as well. United Stand Shopify is where you can get it. It's my new favourite design. I bloody love it. You walk around on the streets and non-football people look at it and go, wow, what's that all about? And I go, don't talk to me, because if you don't know, you shouldn't even be appreciating it. It's got nothing to do with, I don't work at a butcher's, right? You can't buy your meat from me. That's not for sale. I'm married. Gakpo, Timber, Lema and De Jong by 2023, says David. Lema is going to go to Bayern Munich. But if I was to say to you, where are the 4 areas that Man United need to improve on by the start of next season? Another forward, a right back, another centre back, and another midfielder. They're the 4 priority areas for me. What are yours? Think about it. Maybe get in the chat now. Maybe even we'll discuss it on the 8 o'clock show tonight. But I think we are 4 players away from making a huge step forward next season. This season's going to be weird. Can we get top 4? Could we win the Europa League? Can we win a trophy? They're the 3 things. But next season, you've got to progress. And if we don't improve in those 4 areas, I think next year we'll be battling for the same things we are this year. And we need to realise, and Ten Hag will know this, is it's not improvement next year if you're doing the same thing as this year. That's flatlining. That's just holding ground. We need to, it's like conquering new lands. We need to keep moving forward. So for me, next season, the squad needs to look better than it does now. But the only way it can be better is if you've got a right back who can share the load with Delot. If you've got a centre back who, when Varane or Martinez gets injured, can come in and make us still play the same way because Lindelof and Maguire can't. And a midfielder who, when Casemiro or Eriksen are out of the team, can make us play the same way because McTominay and Fred can't. And we need a forward. So they're the 4 positions for me. We need a right back, another centre back, another midfielder, and a striker. That's what we need. We're sorted at left back. We're fine at goalkeeper. We're wingers wise. We've got loads of options. It's those 4 areas for me. Hi Mark, yesterday was my first Manchester United game at Old Trafford. It was such a great experience, but I was appalled at Fred. Have a great day, Red, says Daniel. Look, Daniel, Fred's not awful. The way I look at Fred now is, because I know a lot of people love Fred and he's got a lovely smile. Imagine saying that about a professional footballer. He's got a lovely smile. I'm looking forward to watching Fred in the World Cup because he's such an oddity as a player. Against Spurs, he was one of the best players on the pitch. But since Spurs, He's been crap. And that's the thing with Fred. He's 1 good game in 5 and 4 crap games. That's not a Man United player. That's a Southampton player, isn't it? But he's going to the World Cup. And he's well liked at Carrington. But the fact is, if you look at Fred over the last 3 years, he is 1 good game in 5 where he's unbelievable, and the rest of them are either poor or average. So Simon says, let's bring back Laird. If Warren Wan-Bissaka leaves, then sign a forward, solve 2 problems. Then if Laird isn't good enough as a backup, focus on a right back in the summer. They could do that, Simon. But what I've been told is with Laird, they're just very wary of bringing him back, sticking him on the bench for the rest of the season. Or if Delo gets injured, is he ready to come in and play against a Liverpool or a Barcelona? That's the concern with Laird, is you can bring him back, but is he ready for that? And actually, ideally, they want to keep him in the Championship at QPR because it's just the perfect place for him for this season. So I'm not ruling it out, but you can sort of see where they're coming from. Anyway, look, thanks everyone for watching. There is an Erik ten Hag press conference coming out at around 1:30, so we will react to that then. And then it's the Friday night, 8 o'clock show tonight. Get my disco shirt on. 8 o'clock show tonight will be fantastic. Look forward to it. We'll have the press conference reaction. I'm just about to put the highlights for episode 3 of my Football Manager career, which is just a deep dive into how great Goldbridge Ball is. It's so good. And then I'm live at 3 o'clock on Twitch with it as well. Thanks everyone for watching. Don't forget Surfshark. Scan the QR code with your phone or go through the link in the description. Free for 3 months, 83% off. A virtual private network. They are fantastic. Protects your private details, etc. And you got the whole, location-based streaming service which you can play and change. I'll speak to you all in a bit. And if you want to get one of these United Stand Shopify, we do ship worldwide. They are fantastic. And I'll speak to you all in a bit. Thanks, everyone.